You are listening to the Healthy Project Podcast with your host, Corey Dion Lewis. For more, go to healthyprojectpodcast.com. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here at the Healthy Project Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Dion Lewis. Today, I have no stranger to me. I got the homie, Lya Williams. The reason, Lya, why I wanted you on the podcast, first of all, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here today.
Yes. You know, one of the reasons why I wanted you here, and there are a few things that we'll talk about, you know, education, things like that, but you're the first black woman that I know that has a background in STEM, engineering. You're the first in, I don't want to say only, because it'd be my luck. Someone's like, you know, I could. Yeah.
Well, I was about to say, I know a few, but if I'm the first, I'm still like, wow. Like, that speaks volumes.
When I found out you were a civil engineer, I was like, yo, that's dope. I had no idea. You're the first to know. So, like, I'm in this stage in life where, you know, I want to see more kids, especially kids of color, to be looking at different ways of getting out of their situation, getting an education. There are other avenues, and for some reason, not for some reason, but we don't really see.
Right.
We don't have representation, right? Like growing up, I didn't have representation of someone who was an engineer.
Correct.
But then to know somebody that is an engineer is like, oh, that's dope. So
changes your perspective.
It changes your perspective for sure. So I definitely want to touch on STEM and all that other stuff. But before we get into that conversation, can you tell the people a little bit about yourself and what gets you up in the morning?
Oh, my gosh. I always feel like that's a loaded question. To know me is to ask me how I'm doing. I'll be like, well, I'm not going to just tell you fine. So a little bit about myself is I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I went to college at North Carolina Agricultural, Technical, and State University, and I actually got my degree in agricultural and biosystems engineering. So the civil engineering was by title when I went to work for USDA.
Gotcha.
However, so I went to college. I got this great job with USDA NRCS, and I worked in Maryland for 2 years, and then I got the opportunity to come here to Des Moines. And that's where the civil engineering title came in, because I was designing flood retarding structures, also known as dams. And so that's what brought me here to Iowa, because then I can work at I know people don't probably know where you record, but I worked in the downtown building here for the federal building, and I got to be on a design team where I reviewed dams and also designed them at the same time.
Right. What was that work like? Like, was it stressful work? Because, you know, designing dams, like, I'm assuming there's a lot of like, hey, this has to be right, or we could have some problems.
The work itself wasn't stressful, but as you mentioned about having representation, I don't know how deep we're going to go.
We can go as deep as you want.
It was the people I had to work with, because as you said, I'm the only one you knew. So guess what? I was the only one for the state of Iowa. Even when I worked in Maryland, I was the only one for the state of Maryland. Now, there was way more black male engineers, but when it came down to it, I was one of 5 black females at that particular time that I knew for my agency. So having to debunk my ethnicity and my gender all at the same time. And then I look younger. People don't assume that. So all my life, you know, people assume I'm presumably younger. So it's like all those things you have to debunk. And then I got my accent, you know. People don't think you're smart enough. You know, they thinking Beverly Hillbilly. So you have all that kind of stuff. So I couldn't just go to work and just be Lya. I had to first, because my name's spelled Lya. First, I got to get you to say my name right.
Right.
Then I got to get you to respect me as a person. Then I could get down to the work.
Before you can even get to the work, there's some, you got to get through the bushes and the thorns, get through all that just to say, okay, now let's get to work.
Right. So it's like, you know, that constant like questioning of yourself. Like you could say something and then nobody hears the answer. But then if my white counterpart said something, oh, they knew it was up. And I'm sitting here like, but I just said that. Oh, we didn't hear you. Right. So when you have to constantly go through those kind of thresholds, that's hard. But I'm no stranger to it.
Right. Man, that's deep. And we can talk about just that for a long time. Right. I want to get into wanted to talk to you
No
about.
problem.
So when we think of STEM, like not everybody knows what that is.
Right.
And I know that's a lot of what your platform is built on. So can you tell us what is STEM?
STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And I know we were going to probably talk about STEAM. That didn't quite take off because there is still like a controversy amongst the older people in the STEM wanting to add the word art. So I have had that thrown at me a few times. And I'm
Right.
like, well, I'm not going to make the whole battle. The whole battle for me is the STEM platform because I want to encourage more people who look like me and not assume I couldn't be one. Right. So that's the background for STEM.
Right. Why do you think going back to what you're saying, and this kind of leads into my next question, why do you think there is such a lack of diversity in this industry?
Because I don't think we think that we can do it. See, like, I'm from the East Coast. So on the East Coast, the population demographics is so much different. I got to have it at a younger age. My mom being a math teacher. Let's start there. How many of us think math is hard? I mean, you would meet so many people, I can't do math. And girls get discouraged even earlier on about a lot of girls I knew math, but once, the hormones kicked in, they like boys, that kind of goes out the door. But when you're not there trying to encourage someone to pick it up and figure it out, because math, that's my love language. I love math. I love math to death because math is in everything we do. We couldn't sit on this couch. You wouldn't be able to record this podcast. You got to be able to know how to do your numbers, right? And then having two uncles. So a lot of people don't know this, but my uncle, he's recently going to be retiring. He's a chancellor currently at North Carolina A&T State University. And he's my mom's youngest brother. And my older uncle, both of the two, I'm trying to say, were electrical engineers. So as a kid, I got a math teacher and two engineers. So I got to grow up with that. So that's a thing I think that you need that representation early on. And then the other thing is, if I don't know how to do math, how do I get in advanced math? You need to be able to know how to do it if you want to be able to apply for it. So by the time I'm a freshman in high school, I'm taking geometry. I'm in there with the juniors and seniors. So, yes, I was very much that nerd. However, I knew early on I wanted to be an engineer. So I think that's to me, in the nutshell, is having the representation and then being able to catch kids younger early on. Because if you don't have this high math by 8th grade, you can't progress to the next stage.
Yeah. So not only did you have a love for math, it sounds like, 'cause it was a part of your environment.
Right.
If engineering was where you were, it was in your family. It was what you loved, so it was there. And that's always not the case for a lot of kids.
It's not.
You know what I mean?
Like, I forgot to add. So when my uncle, before he was a chancellor, when I was about 16, he had a STEM program at A&T. So I got the opportunity to stay on campus and go to a STEM program. And it was free. So I think it's the access. You got to have access and you need to have opportunities. And like Amir, my son, he goes to STEM camp. That camp is like $250.
Right.
So now you got a socioeconomic thing.
There's another barrier.
How many people have access? Even people who are working don't really have that access to it. And he goes for a week. And we'll probably do it again. Like, it's at his own intuition that he wants to do it.
Right.
But you got to be able to have that. So I think if we have that. So you mentioned about another woman. I don't know if you knew Kim Wayne. But she used to work for 3M. But she has a Jewels Academy. But it's specifically for girls of color.
Yeah.
So, see, that's an access thing, right?
Yeah.
So if we had more stuff like that, I know that's where my heart is. But I don't know how to get it started.
Right.
Because that's been the thing. Like, how do you make that opportunity? Who do I reach out to? Who can help me do this? And how can it not just be me since I have other hats?
Right. It's too bad, too, because even looking at it as from a parent perspective, right? And there's privilege in being able to drop 200 on a program. But I'm not even going to lie to you. Lya, it's so interesting as you say that, because I'm sitting here thinking, like, I just dropped a couple hundo on a basketball team,
Right. Sports.
and then but to think about dropping that for something that wasn't like that, it's like, well, we gotta sit down and see what this budget looking like,
Right.
But even though that probably was the case too with the basketball, but it wasn't as much of a conversation. And how do we change that mindset of investing? Because now, as you say that, now I'm thinking, well, this is just this is an investment in my child's future,
Right.
that will probably take him a lot further than basketball.
Because not everybody going to be LeBron James.
Look.
And,
Yeah.
from my generation, Michael Jordan. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I love, like, my sister, I have a nephew, he's 6'8". So, every time they see him, and he's at A&T, by the way. I'm not going to say his name so he don't get embarrassed. But first thing they ask, do you play basketball?
Yep.
So one of the things I always consciously said to myself is when people would meet my child, we do not get to ask him about sports. Ask him if he's about to be a doctor, if he's going to do something else. Like, we have to debunk that. And I do understand that's a lot of people's way of having a different lifestyle to get themselves and pull themselves up by the bootstraps. However, your knee can go out,
Tomorrow.
and you still need to know math. Want to know why? Because you want people to be able to, you need to be able to count your money.
Yep.
You need to be knowledgeable enough on how that's going to work so people don't take the money from underneath you. But back to that with my nephew, my sister started saying we promote academics over athletics. And that has really stuck with me because I sometimes worry, like, maybe my kid going to be this nerd and nothing's wrong with it, because a lot of times we're the ones that's behind it, getting things pushing and moving, and there's nothing wrong. But I think sometimes people think it's a bad thing to be smart. When I was coming up, it was ridiculed.
Oh, yeah, you didn't want to.
You know what I'm saying? And I wore glasses. I mean,
forget about it.
Now they're in fashion, but them big ones. Okay. And
So
then
I ain't laughing at you.
Yes, you are.
I just
but then to get called a nerd, I had to learn, like, okay, and I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
Now what? But I can poke my, I got my head up. I'm an engineer. Not a lot of people can say that.
Not a lot of people can say that.
They can't say that. And but it does also create sometimes a problem, because when you say that, then you got to deal with, oh, she knows more than me. What can I figure out that she doesn't know? It's not that. I just proved myself academically that I'm capable of being a jack of all trades.
And they're just showing their insecurity.
Yes.
Ain't nothing to do with you.
Nothing to do with me.
Right. How do we encourage more diversity in these programs? So, like, why I ask that is, especially in our school district, they have different programs that are kind of mass for engineering. So they have, like, where you can make
the Lego
League. And I think there was like a robot one where you can do, like,
they have robotics, coding.
There's all these things. But you don't necessarily, it's almost like they're not marketed towards certain individuals, or, like, maybe they are, but, like, certain people aren't.
They're not.
They're not.
Because the Lego League, for example, because I was going to bring that up, believe it or not, is an Indian woman. She's one of the robotics coaches, and she was like, she had never met a black female engineer. So you're not the minority on that type of concept. But the fact that I was first, and I'm sitting here like, wow, like, this is deep, right? Well, there was a time where they didn't have a lot of Indian kids in the Lego Leagues. When I went to go look, because I was asked to be a judge, at that particular time, I couldn't. It was just some other things. However, all I saw were white kids, Asian kids, which Asian kids are also Indian kids, right? There was no black kids. None. And Amir was doing a future Lego League. It's the starter group, third grade. He wanted to do it. Well, the problem is coming up with a team. So if I want to have a team of some black kids, first I got to go find some black students, right? And now I got to add that to my plate too, to be a coach.
Oh, yeah.
And so where my heart is there is saying that where will I be able to put that time in? So there's there. So that's where it is. It's like I needed to find me a parent, was my plan, who would be willing to do it, because they give you everything you need
right
to get started. But where are you going to find that at? Because so many of us are already busy. But I think it's just like, you know how you're making your aha about basketball. We have to just find someone that's willing. I'm not saying you, but there has to be someone really putting it upon their heart. And I'm hoping that I can get that because I want my child on that team. I just personally can't do it, but I'm willing to do it if it doesn't fall all on me. So that was one option.
Right. I know it's almost just taking the pause and seeing what the bigger picture is.
Right.
Right. And I know my son. I know he would love to do something like that.
Okay.
He would. Hudson. That math is his thing.
Okay.
And he loves Legos. But for some reason, every time I bring it up, it's like, yeah. But it's like I'm wondering if maybe if he saw some people that look like him,
that's key.
That he would be like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But he's just kind of like, oh, it's cool, but you know.
I think it's hard because I think we do things based off our past generation. Like my motivation was my mom was a math teacher, so that meant public education money. Well, my father worked in a factory, but he was the highest position as a mechanic. He still had to know how to do algebra. Sometimes they would test him to maintain that job, but it was the highest position you can have without having a college degree in a tobacco industry, right? Mm-hmm. But the two of them was always like, we want you to live nice, but we want you to live better than me. So putting that mindset. So I wasn't pushed to make straight A's. I wasn't pushed to do anything that I didn't want to do. But them encouraging me to do that and always, the biggest thing I love that my dad would say was like, whatever you learn here, nobody can take away from you. And so that gave me enough confidence when I would be in rooms with people who wanted to debunk me. So with our kids, I don't think they really understand the struggles of how we got there. I think if my son was challenged, for instance, with having to be on campus, no air conditioning, no internet, no phone, and you're having to walk everywhere because you don't have a vehicle. That was the way my HBCU was set up, Historically Black College and University, for those that don't know. So I had that mindset, and I was always taught to do a lot of stuff independently. I feel like, and I'll speak for myself, we do more for our kids than they have to really do. Now, there's some things I make them independently do. Right. But those are the conversations I have. I say, well, what do you want to do in your future? If I'm always doing this for you, or you're always choosing the fun stuff, you're going to be an adult sometime, and you're going to need to know these things. And it's absolutely my job to encourage you how to go that path. So maybe we got to, get the families together and do a Lego party. We got plenty of Legos.
We got plenty of Legos.
And maybe that could be a thing, is create an event. I know we know enough people between us. Yep. And make it that way and see if that could be something to pick up,
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. We should definitely talk about that. So it's very apparent that education, math, these are foundational things of your mission and what you do. And I'm tiptoeing around this topic. Uh-oh. You know what I'm saying? Because, I don't want no smoke. Right. And I know you're running for school board. What encouraged you, or what was the kind of the genesis of your reason for wanting to be involved and being a presence there? Honestly, what we've already talked about. I didn't see myself. I come into the school as a kindergarten parent, and I'm just looking around. I mean, real talk, I always do look for some of us because that's a safe space for me. Right. Who's present with me, right? I try to go there. But when I was sitting around at the parent-teacher organization, PTO, and I was it for us, people of color, brown people, I was just like, what's going on? Why aren't there other parents here? But it became apparent to me this is important because as I got involved, I didn't have just like black babies coming up to me. I had Indian babies. I had Asian babies saying, oh, I know who you are. You're what they would say, Amir's mom. And that gave me encouragement. Like, okay, me being here present as a parent, I'm debunking that we don't care. Because so many times I would hear, well, parents should be here and they should do that. Well, when you go work from 8 to 5, then you got to think about food or what sport, stuff like that. The last thing you want to do once a month is go to a meeting in the evening, right? So I took that upon my shoulders and said, this is where I want to be. But the biggest catalyst was
Black History Month that rolled around, and my son did not talk to me about it at all. And I was sitting here like, I know we in February. So I had emailed the teacher. I was like, so what do y'all do for Black History Month? Because I'm thinking my baby going to roll up in here and tell me at least about Martin Luther King, something. And she was like, oh, we just have we just give out information. And I was just like, okay, this is not good with me. So right before the pandemic, I reached out and talked to our principal, and I have another parent with me. She did all the research, and we came with, we need to have a culture day, and we're going to start here. These babies can at least learn about George Washington Carver, of all people. Even I had to learn, this man went to Iowa State University. How many people know that?
I just found out just right now.
Okay. For y'all historic scholars, don't call me out. But the fact that this, that we can start there. I went to a George Washington Carver High School, and I didn't even know this, right?
Wow.
So we can at least start there. But the pandemic happened, and we could not get that together because, we were sent home. However, that's what kind of propelled it, was that representation and like, who am I seeing here? And then walking around the building, damn, you mean to tell me this school district don't have not a Black employee anywhere? Like, your demographics are changing. So when I'm sitting in PTO, our principal gives us data, and they're telling me what the population layout, and I was like, ooh, this my end. So because of that, I was able to go and sit down, because I can talk well, have a conversation and say what we can do. And there was the buy-in. And sure enough, we had some other things that kicked off, but that's where it happened for me.
Man, it's beautiful that you're part of that representation, because if we didn't have anybody there, and for me, I didn't even think it was that big of a deal. Like, if someone were to tell me about, hey, you want to go to the school PTO meeting, I'd be like, why? Like, what are they really talking about? I'm just being real.
Yes.
But recent years,
yes,
had me think like yo, see? Like maybe I shouldn't just be so at the back of the wall, just making sure I thinking everything gonna be cool,
right? Because
not everything's sweet like that. But it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, especially with the STEM, and I want to bring up the A in STEAM too. I want to bring up that A.
Oh, I was trying to dodge it, but okay, go ahead.
Well, just because I don't know much about it, so I'm not trying. Look, I don't want please don't give Lya no problems, because I'm asking these questions.
I got big shoulders, but I'm just saying.
But like, it goes back to representation, and I can't be upset about something going on if I'm not there for the conversation.
Right. There has been so many little things like that. Like, you and your wife came and did tug of war last year for, a field day. We don't have to go and be the ones planning all the teachers' party, but being there, I'm sure not only does it give you representation to students, but look at how much, like, Amir be looking for me. I'm at the point now, something happened. So, Mom, what time are you going to be there? Because he's gotten used to knowing his mom is going to be there. And I wouldn't have that if this wasn't a sacrifice of not, I'm a stay-at-home mom. So, I have the ability to do that. My husband helps provide, when I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
That gives me that opportunity to roll it out like that. But it came from a girlfriend. She's a single parent, and she was still a PTO president and was very involved. And she was like, Lya, whatever you do, be involved, because these parents are kind of in the background able to help influence some things. And people don't realize how much influence you have just being a parent volunteer. I can go in that building, everybody know who I am. I don't have to flash my ID when I walk up in there. And because I believe in conversations with people, and I do my best to not judge people just by looking at them.
Right.
You can't resist my smile, I hope, and my humor, because I'm just very much just want to be present. Right. I want that circle effect. I want his teacher to know I'm here to support you supporting my son. And this needs to be a team effort here. Right.
No, that's real. Let's talk about this much hated A.
Uh-oh.
So tell me, what's the A in STEAM, and why? You touched on it a little bit, but why is it kind of that has this controversy?
To be honest with you, it ain't a big deal to me, but I have a cousin. She has her doctorate, and so she's been teaching math for quite some time. And I brought up, she's like, they need to let that A go. And I was like, but why? And but the A stands for arts. And so don't nobody cancel me, because this is a cancel culture. Don't cancel me. I love the arts, be honest with you. So to me, I feel like it applies because I do knit. In order to knit, I got to do math because I got to count a lot, right? And so I could see the application that way. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know how painting really, if I'm going to be that literal, I don't understand what painting on the canvas has to do with STEAM. But I thought, well, maybe does it tie into, because graphic designers, graphic artists, they have to have the ability to use technology and stuff. So that part I don't know. From what I read up, I think it was a way to implement that more like at the school age, like our elementary kids, not per se really in our our adolescents. There we go. Right. So I don't know. So, because I've often heard too, it could have been agriculture. Then that would have made sense to me. So I don't know. Corey,
is it just because it's...
I don't know. I think because you never thought about that. But I've had people along the way like, why don't you put STEAM? Because my platform is STEM with an emphasis on STEM. And they're like, why didn't you do STEAM? And I'm like, I tried, but every time I would bring it up, I would get this like that. Then I'll have people who, going along with the new thing. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's a good question. I'm going to put back on other people. Well, what do you think? Do you think arts belong in it?
Because, so this is my non, engineer mind. Okay. I'm just a layman I'm just a podcaster.
Okay.
Right? I think of it as, well, when you're thinking about engineering and you're thinking about numbers, what are you doing? Well, you're using your mind.
Right.
Right? So it's like, well, in art, if you're going to paint something, you got to use your mind and your creativity. There's some, even though it's math and it's cut and dry, there is some creativity to what you have to do.
Correct.
In my opinion, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, well, maybe it's more of a mind, you're using your mind.
You do, because like Legos. So, true story, Amir is in kindergarten, and they're like, he's not very imaginative, but when he would get Legos, my child can, oh my God, he inspires me. He can take something, see it, and now he knows how to apply it, right? And I'm like, well, not everybody's creativity is that same way. And it made me think about that when in my adolescence, that I didn't have imagination enough. But it's like, not all of us are these creators,
right.
or maybe we're creators in a different way. But I've always been very much a logical person. So
right.
I want to draw on a dot grid because I like my lines. I want to measure correctly, right?
Yeah.
However, my creativity, as I was mentioning with knitting, I have been able to design things or figure stuff out that way.
Yeah.
And so we all are different in what we are, and we shouldn't be shamed if we're not creative. Some of us are just not. Like, if you told my child to draw something, he's like, but I'm not that great at it.
Yeah,
but if I say, go build this, he's a tactile person.
Yeah.
He can do that. So I blame some of that on me. Like that, when we was doing COVID and doing English and all that kind of stuff, me and him was both crying. But when we got to do the math, and science, we was for it. But that English thing rolled around and we were just like, no.
Woo.
Yeah. Or he had to create a drawing and it was just like, let us just get on this YouTube and find this like easy step by step. But he's too busy like, but mommy, I can't draw. I'm like, it's not about perfection,
Right.
Doing that. You just made me think maybe we need to ask Robert more. Like, wonder what he would think about STEAM. Since he is a local artist.
He's an artist, yeah. Yeah, an accomplished artist. So I'm sure I would love to get his perspective on that too. Man. But man, I hope nobody don't come at me about this. That's just my point. That's just my thought. Lya, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. For those that want to learn more about you, what you're doing for the schools and want to learn more about your position, where can they reach you?
On all the social medias. So I am Lya for Johnston Schools on Facebook and Instagram as well as TikTok. And then I'm on, I like to say X, formerly known as Twitter.
Right.
And I think that's been it. And then I have a website, lyawilliams.com, and my name is spelled LYAWILLIAMS.com.
Awesome. Well, Lya, again, thank you so much for being here. And everybody, thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I'll highlight you next time.